Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Griffin Hammond.
I'm Nick Bodmer, and on this week's episode, we're figuring out who's stealing Griffin's movie. We're talking copyright infringement.
Plus, your questions about BitTorrent, insuring cameras, and whether UV filters are necessary.
How the heck are ya?
Pretty good. I think, even though I can't see it, is your shot a little wider today?
That's the hope. That's the hope. Same lens, but just I'm a little farther back.
Just
There's a lot of Nick in the last episode.
There were a few YouTube comments about how close you were.
Yeah, and no one seemed to be particularly fan of how close I was, so
although
I tried to get a little farther away.
I do love the YouTube comments because it points out, it just illustrates really well how subjective everything in filmmaking is, because there are people who didn't like your shot, there were people that liked your shot more than mine. Like, some people like the color of your shot better than the color of my shot.
Sure.
My shots
but
have been very
But I think we can all
orange.
agree that our shots should match. And they certainly did not. I was quite a bit bigger than you.
So maybe our framing's a little bit better today. Although I'm still shooting with a lens that's probably exaggerating things a little bit more.
Yep.
So we're never going to get it exactly the same.
I am exactly as far away as I can be and still hit the autofocus button and get it to pull focus on my face. So I cannot get any farther from this lens, or I'll need like a focus stick.
Right, yeah. Or you could use... Oh, wait. I was almost going to say you could use the built-in Wi-Fi, but the GH3 does not have that.
Sounds like you're going to have to part with one of those GH5s, send them my way. A few other things behind the scenes. I got a bigger SD card.
Oh, yeah.
A little behind the scenes, we had to stop recording halfway through the podcast because my 16 gig card filled up last week. Not happening this time, 32 gigs, baby.
Yeah, but apparently the bit rate on the GH3 is bigger than the bit rate on the iPhone.
Well, I wasn't recording to SD cards on an iPhone.
Right. But also, I assume you were not filling up 16 gigs on your iPhone every time we did the podcast.
I don't know. They were probably not. They were pretty big, but I do have a 128 gig iPhone, so
yeah.
That is fascinating stuff.
So if you missed last week's episode, we talked all about our setup. And strangely, at some point in the show, you brought up photos of us from high school.
Yes, I did. And you put those in the show notes. I saw.
Yeah, did you see all of those? Did you see the old one that I found of you and me?
Like on set of a theater show we were doing?
Yeah, Nick and I were both, we called ourselves techies in high school. We did backstage theater production. Nick was cooler than me, though, because he did, like, sound and lights.
Sound and lights. Yeah, that's where I got my start.
And
we actually did our first full-length film was called Techies.
Yeah. Which, again, someday we'll have to release all of it or some of it.
Oh, God, can you imagine? I haven't seen that in a long time. I don't even think I have a copy of it. I'll have to get a copy from you.
So I do want to bring up a YouTube comment real quick at the start before we get started talking about all the people that are stealing my movie. I do just want to mention this YouTube comment from The Search for Awesome. I don't know if you saw this, Nick, but
I don't think so.
Kind of aimed at you. He wrote, he watches all of these, and this is definitely his favorite video creator / filmmaker podcast. Not to sound weird, but you guys have a great chemistry, and I wasn't sure about Nick at first, but he is a great comic relief. And then he says you should start a YouTube channel. He's telling you, Nick, you should start a YouTube channel and show me how it's done. You clearly have the skills, man.
Thanks. That makes me feel better. We do have a good chemistry, don't we, Griffin?
Yeah, we go way back.
Way back. How long?
8th grade?
So, yeah, 8th grade. What year would that have been? Like 97?
97 is when we met, yeah.
So that's 20 years ago. We've known each other for 20 years.
Oh, man. That's been a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time. We're old.
Yeah, there aren't many people I've known for 20 years I could do a podcast with.
And we've stayed good friends like the whole time, basically.
Yeah.
Good for us.
All right, let's get to the show here.
This is the show, Griffin. This is what they tune in for. All right, so tell me about people stealing your movie.
So there's several ways that people have been stealing my movie. I guess I have like 3 stories here, and I'll start with just the most basic one that you would expect. The kind of thing where people just like steal my movie and post it on YouTube. So like, I think I have had one person just outright download my film Sriracha and just upload it to YouTube.
Really?
Yeah. And that's outrageous. But there's an easy recourse, right?
You just ask YouTube to take it down, right?
Yeah, YouTube has this really simple process called, it's like the DMC takedown, and YouTube makes it really easy to do that. All you do is flag it. In fact, I'll put a link in the show notes at Hey.film to a video I have flagged, and it's down now, and it says when you go to it, Sriracha something, this video is no longer available due to a copyright claim by Griffin Hammond. So that's the one thing that kind of sucks about doing a copyright claim, though, is you have to, like, out yourself. Like, it puts your name on the infringing video.
Well, that makes sense, though.
Yeah. But what's weird is I don't often have people, like, outright uploading the film. I actually have this problem a lot. I just Googled, like, watch Sriracha movie, and a couple of the top results, which I'll put some images in the show notes, are just people posting what looks like a way to watch the film. It has like a thumbnail that looks like it is something for my film, so it really is copyright infringement, I guess. But then when you try to push play, it makes you, download something or register. Like they don't really have my film, I don't think. Maybe.
Oh, and it's just like to get, spyware on your computer or something?
Probably, yeah. And there's actually a bunch of YouTube videos like this. I just checked, and there's all these YouTube videos that, here, I'll play one and you can hear it, because they're kind of hilarious. It's called Sriracha 2013 Full Movie Free.
It doesn't sound like your film at all.
No, this is like the universal theme music. Bum, 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 bum. So this starts, and then...
Hello, I'm sorry, but the original video has been removed by...
And then a woman comes on the screen and pretty much tells you, you need to go click on our website and you can watch this movie.
They're liars. They're capitalizing on your hard work.
These are weird because I will do a DMC takedown, but it's like they haven't actually stolen my film. They're just kind of exploiting my film. Yeah. But it's still enough that YouTube will take it down. So I just submit the DMC takedown. I can't even tell you. It just asks you for the URL of the infringing video, and then it asks me to like link to my original work. So I can actually link to the Vimeo version and say, here's where they're stealing my stuff. And that was enough to get YouTube to take it down.
Mm-hmm. Good.
But a lot of people ask me about freebooting. Do you know that phrase?
Oh, I know that phrase. Do you know the origins of that phrase?
I don't. What does it mean?
Well, it is a repurposed name. I think Brady Heron from Hello Internet coined that term for people taking his videos and, posting them to Facebook or whatever and basically, ripping his stuff off and posting it as their own.
Right. You see all the time. Facebook, things can go super viral on Facebook. You can get millions of views very quickly. And so people have an incentive just to steal your stuff and repost it.
And this has happened to Sriracha?
Not in the way that people would expect. People see things that look like my film a lot or actually are pieces of my film on Facebook, and they always come to me and they say, hey, look, someone's freebooting your film, someone's stealing it. And it's usually not that cut and dry. I guess that's kind of what I keep finding with copyright infringement. It's never that simple. It's not like people are just going out and going, hey, I'm going to buy this movie, re-upload it to Facebook, I'm going to get so many views, or re-edit it. What really happens, and I'll tell you a story about this company that took it, and I'm not going to say their name just because it actually got resolved in a way that I'm happy with, so I don't really want to out them. But there was a company that 2 years ago licensed, they'd licensed like 60 seconds of my film to use in like a 10-minute YouTube video. And this was actually pretty common. A lot of people will license footage from my film because they have the same problem that I had. When I went to the factory the first time, the Hoi Fong Foods factory, to go film the harvest, I was told the harvest doesn't happen all year round. We're not grinding peppers and collecting peppers all year. We do it once a year, like for 2 months. So all of these TV shows keep showing up at Hoi Fong Foods. They want to do TV shows about Sriracha, and they find that they can't shoot it. And Hoi Fong Foods says, hey, you should go talk to this guy, Griffin Hammond. He had a film. So, like, my footage has actually appeared in... Did you know that I was in that show Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, so, like, that show and a bunch of, like, cooking shows and stuff will use footage for my film, and usually they don't use very much. And I try not to charge them a crazy amount because, like, I know how bad it was that I had to pay $2,500 for 30 seconds of footage for my movie. So the license usually end up being around $1,000 or something.
Well, that's still nice little bonus money, though, right?
It's nice that the film can make some money in other ways besides just pay-per-view. But what happened was one company bought some of the film to be used very specifically in this particular video.
This 10-minute video on YouTube.
Yeah, long video, and they were going to use a part of the film, just reference Sriracha at a certain point. And is that in a contract that you signed with them? The very specific purpose of this? Yeah, and that was a $1,000 contract. And they dictated most of the terms of the contract. I said a few things. Some of it was put in the contract, but most of the contract was like a form contract they had written up. And we signed that. I get paid. Everything's good. Then 2 years later, someone re-edits my footage into a Facebook video. And this time
one of these videos that plays usually without sound. It has words over it and stuff. And then
it has some music, but the music's pointless. Yeah, you don't need the music. Yeah. It's text. And it's just like a, hey, this is how Sriracha gets made video. And there are a few of these kind of videos on Facebook, and some of them have licensed my stuff. Like BuzzFeed has a video like this where they licensed a few seconds of my film. But this video was all my film, none of the original show they had shot. It was actually more of my film than was originally licensed to them. And so it just kind of caught me off guard. And a bunch of people, thankfully, a lot of people that listen to this podcast saw this thing on Facebook, and they sent it to me and said, hey, what's up with this? And so I was pretty freaked out about that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, because how many views did it have?
It had like millions.
Like it's just like stolen right from you. Millions of views.
And it's funny because we talked about in a few episodes ago when we talked about the revenue that Sriracha's made, I said that the film in total has like 700,000 views. So to suddenly get dwarfed by this thing on Facebook overnight, that's really just using everything in my film was pretty crazy.
So what'd you do?
I sent them an email, and I don't have a lawyer, but I try to sound lawyerly. I mean, I'm not trying to like use flowery language and threaten them or anything, but I want them to understand that what they did is not in the contract. So I outlined the fact that I looked back at the contract and found that, this contract says that they are allowed to re-edit a trailer of the original thing that they made 2 years ago.
Sure.
But the fact that they're using more of the footage than before suggests this is not a trailer.
Yeah.
Two, they are not linking back to the original thing. They're not telling you to go watch the other thing, so it's not really a trailer. It's not an ad for the original content. Yep. It's a whole new thing. So I said that. I was actually looking a lot at like the 4 principles of fair use. Mm-hmm. Fair use being that defense, like you can use other people's stuff in certain circumstances. In fact, I think like there would be a way that they could use my film this way. I think if they just like if they were making a Facebook video that was like, "Hey, we just watched this film about Sriracha, and we hated it."
So if it was criticism, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are ways to do commentary and criticism. I mean, I would hate it if they made a video that was like, "Here's every shot of Sriracha and why we hated it." But if they were adding their own commentary and making something,
I'm making that movie, by the way.
Yeah,
that's my next film.
I mean, arguably, you could get away with that, but
and I will.
They weren't being particularly transformative. So I explained that they used like too much of it. They used the substantiality of what they used. Like they used the entire piece was my film, instead of adding their own stuff. And then I also looked at another part of fair use is, are they making money off of it? Like what's kind of the nature of the use?
Yeah.
And they
2 million views. I mean, that's going to add up to some dollars.
Right. They were monetizing it. There's ads on Facebook. So I even kind of calculated like, well, let's see. The number of views they have, let's assume that Facebook, even though Facebook's ad system is new, let's assume it's a similar rev share to YouTube. So I did the math and determined like they could have earned $20,000 already off this thing.
Jeez.
And then my final point to them was the impact on the market of my film. That, none of this matters that much if it's not hurting my film. And in fact, if they had a link at the end of it that said, hey, all of this footage came from Griffin's great Sriracha documentary, you should go watch it, that'd probably actually help me. The market for my film would be better. But
they were not doing that.
Yeah, my point was you're showing all the good stuff in my film. You're not telling people about the original film. In fact, there were even some commenters that were conflating the two. There were people that were confusing. They thought they were watching the documentary. Like, now that they're done watching it, they've watched the documentary.
Quite literally
Yeah.
taking your market away from you.
So I just explained, I kind of, I introduced myself. I reminded them why we all knew each other, that we had worked together 2 years ago, and then I just kind of went through these 4 concerns I had. And in the end, I said, based on all of this, I think you owe me like $20,000. And so I actually sent them an invoice for $20,000 for like the new license.
Nice.
Because I don't want to frame this as like a penalty. I don't want it to be like I'm taking you to court and a judge is going to issue a judgment.
You're saying, okay, we're changing the terms of the contract. Here's the new bill.
I'm just saying I want to help you keep this thing online, so let's retroactively license what you've done. I want to make what you've done copyright appropriate.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if their response is, we're so sorry, let's take it down right now, I feel like I lose a lot of leverage in the negotiation.
Sure.
Because I would love for them to keep it online, make a bunch of money, so they feel like they can give me a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So they were, this company was great. They got back to me very quickly. They were very apologetic. They understood what had happened and why it had happened. I think there was just some confusion in the editing. I think it started in one place and, maybe it started in an honest place of we're actually cutting a trailer. And then someone said, hey, this would be a lot better if we just cut out all the other stuff and just added more of this great archival content we have. I don't know where we got this from,
but it's in our system, so let's use it.
And then they also showed me how much the film, or how much their Facebook video had made. They were very transparent about that. And it was a lot less than what I thought, because what I didn't realize is that Facebook ads right now are kind of doing A/B testing. So it's not like they're running the ad for every user. They're running it on a few users and kind of seeing how it goes.
Okay. So
they had earned around, I think, $2,500 at that point. I'm sure by now they've earned more. But we agreed that a $5,000 license and them adding a link to the film, at least in the Facebook post, would be appropriate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So in the end, I got $5,000 for making a film 3 years ago.
Now, this does beg the question, like, is this an avenue you should be looking at for your films? Like posting like this kind of shortened Facebook type video yourself?
I definitely should. And arguably I should have done this with Sriracha a while ago. Although now may be the time to do it, because now is when Facebook's actually doing
ads.
Ads, yeah. Before it was just people were doing this because they wanted to build an audience.
Sure.
But I do want to do this with hand cut. I think hand cut, a 5-minute film, would be perfect to cut down to a 1-minute Facebook video with some text on screen. Like, I made something that was kind of, I think, was stylish and beautiful, hopefully. But it also was informative, and I could just make a very simple, like, this is how clear ice is made video. Just get right to the point.
Awesome. And then I guess you share it and then just kind of see how it spreads? Or how?
Yeah.
What do you do? Or can you put it out as an advertisement yourself and then to try and kick off some social sharing? I'm not sure what the process would be to kind of put that out into the world.
Now that you mention it, I realize I'm not... I think it's very limited right now who can do advertising on Facebook. I'm not one of the brands that has that activated. Okay. So I probably can't even do that.
I bet it's coming, though. I can still
make the video and hopefully get lots of views, but...
Yeah, it's just kind of a new, interesting avenue, and it's definitely a new kind of form of video production that hasn't really existed before. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting...
I find myself watching a lot of those, a lot more, like maybe even more than I watch YouTube videos.
Probably me too.
Those dumb food ones just suck you in. All of a sudden, they're making Rice Krispie chocolate syrup sushi, and it looks so good. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that one, but those cooking videos are an effective way to use that, because like you can learn a recipe in 30 seconds, and it's that whole genre of food porn.
Exactly.
There are whole film festivals now that are. I mean, I go to these film festivals with my films. There are film festivals that are just food film festivals.
That's awesome.
Did I ever tell you about the time that like a grocery store stole part of my movie?
Are these the people who stole your titles?
Yeah. Again, I won't mention who, because I think you know, though, because this actually ended well again. This is another situation where I was able to get some money out of it.
Yep.
But again, this was someone out in the internet, someone on Twitter brought this to my attention, just said, "Hey, Griffin, did you know that this store that I go to, I think it was like Minnesota or something, was just using the title screen of my film, like the place where I write out sriracha in handwriting near the beginning of my film. They had taken that screen grab from the film and had just printed it out as a sign to display in the store. Like they had a whole like sriracha display. Like we're selling sriracha chips and all the different products. Here they are, sriracha. Come buy it."
Was this a national chain or a local?
Yeah, this was a big, publicly traded billion-dollar company. The kind of company that, should know better.
Should know better, yeah.
Just
now, do you know, was it only at that one store, or had they pushed this out to many stores?
Well, it's funny because I didn't know very much. All I knew was it was in one store, and so I emailed their general counsel, and I can't even remember where I found this email address, but I just explained the problem I had, and I had a few questions for him. I said, "Hey, how many stores is this in? How long has this been this way? I'd like to know." And I was surprised how forthcoming he was. He told me it was in 8 stores currently, and it had been there for like 3 months, and they really liked it, and they were thinking about expanding it to more stores. And so again, I didn't want to like tell them to take it down. I wanted to work together and
just put some sriracha Blu-rays right next to it.
Yeah. So my offer was, I think my opening offer was, I want you to keep this in all stores, use it in more stores. So let's just do a blanket license. I think I suggested, I can't remember if it was $3,000 or $5,000 as a one-time payment. You'd have a perpetual license to use this image in this way in stores forever. Which I thought was fair. Like you could use this in hundreds of stores if you want. And you just can't like, you can't use it in other ways. Like you can't go put it on TV and go put it on the internet and stuff. But if you want to use it physically, print it out, make as many of these signs as you want. And they were not interested in paying that much. So in the end, we ended up negotiating all the way down to, I think they paid me $500 and they took it down, I think. Yeah.
Now, I wonder, like, so if you had decided to go about that differently and get a lawyer, like, what would the damages be that you could extract in a situation like that?
Well,
like, I guess I'm wondering, did you get screwed by not, fighting them a little more, or no? I guess maybe not.
Probably. I mean, in some way, though, it's never going to go to court. It's like having a lawyer involved would just be more negotiating pressure. Oh, no, there's a lawyer here, so let's say yes to $5,000. Maybe I could have made more money that way. But it's hard to, I think it's hard to calculate damages. I thought about that. Like, how much money, did it hurt my film? Probably not. It feels gross, though, that they like took something from my film and are using it to sell their product. And then how much profit have they made off of this little stand in 8 stores? Like, probably not a crazy amount. Maybe it made $2,000 in sales. We're not selling like expensive things here.
Sure.
So it didn't seem like, it's not like there was this huge profit margin that they made off of it.
Makes sense.
But this whole thing is kind of weird though, because like, I don't know if I have a clear line in my head about what is okay copyright infringement and what stuff bothers me. I know that when people blatantly upload my film to YouTube and they're running ads on it or something, that strikes me as very wrong, because now they're taking my creative work and making money off of it. But at the same time, I believe in fair use, and I believe that some really interesting creative work comes out of taking other people's content. I mean, we've made cool videos when we steal professional artists' music.
Sure.
I mean, I want to live in a world where we're not completely bound by strict copyright and we're able to be creative and artistic. And like, people stole my film when it first came out and put it on the Pirate Bay. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I looked while we were talking. It doesn't seem to be there anymore.
Well, is Pirate Bay even up anymore?
Sure, they move around.
Oh, okay.
Not that I know.
I figured they had mirror sites. But yeah, like a week after I made the film, people posted it on the Pirate Bay. And for some reason, I'm okay with that. Do you think that's weird?
Well, because I guess that's for like individuals to use. Oh no, there it is. Sriracha the movie, 1080p.
Yeah. Yeah, it's out there.
It's out there.
Do you see my comment there?
Yeah, I'm Griffin, the director of Sriracha, and I'm honored you're torrenting my film. You have my blessing to download and seed without repercussions. I've produced thousands of videos in my career, but this is the first one I feel comfortable calling a film. So to find it on the Pirate Bay is an incredible validation of my work. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the film, and please help me promote this indie production. You'll find the trailer at srirachamovie.com.
And then lots of nice replies. Lots of people said, like, you're welcome. People liked the film. Someone even said the comment inspired them to buy the film.
Oh, that's funny.
But I remember exactly why I wrote that, because I think around the same time, Louis C.K., who I'm a big fan of, just watched his Netflix special. I think he had come out with a special on his own on the internet around that time that my film came out. Yeah, it was
the one he was selling for like $5, right?
Yeah.
And there was no hoops or DRM or anything. It was just like, please don't share it. It's $5.
Yeah.
You can download it as many times as you want. Do whatever you need with it. Yeah,
and I think he must have sold like 1 million or 2 million copies of it, or maybe more now.
Yeah, but I'm sure. I know, like within like the first 2 days, it had made $500,000 or something.
Yeah, he made a ton of money off it, which is great for him.
Yeah,
but I remember at the time he wrote like an open letter to the pirate, to the the torrenting community, and said roughly like, this was, this is me. I made this. Please don't steal my stuff. It's mean. And I remember reading it and just thinking like, I understand why he's writing this, but it just feels tone deaf talking to the people he's talking to. Like, they're not going to be like, this millionaire comedian, I'm harming you.
See, I disagree. I thought it was pretty... I thought it struck the right tone. And it, I've been known in the past to find some videos off the back of the truck in ways, and that was one of the first things maybe I bought with my own money for video. No, I liked it. I mean, you're free obviously to take your own thing from it, but I thought that was really cool the way he did that. Similar kind of to what you've written here, I guess. He was asking people to not torrent it, and you're saying go ahead. So there is some difference there, but it's the talking to the community and saying, there's no middlemen or big corporation. It's just me. Yeah. So I thought that was cool.
I think the reason I wrote the comment the way that I wrote it, kind of taking the opposite approach, is when I was reading his, I was thinking the premise here is that he's losing sales, that people are not buying the $5 version because they're able to find it for free. Whereas, I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but I just generally feel like the people that are pirating the film were not going to pay $5 no matter what. And so, or in my case, my film was $5 at the time too. So I'm either gaining an audience and getting sales over here somewhere else, or I'm only getting the sales and I'm losing this audience on the torrent side. The film's not available for free if it's not available to them at all.
Yep, no, there's definitely a balance to strike there. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But I realize that I feel like I'm kind of a hypocrite sometimes. Like, why am I cool with pirating, but I'm going after certain people? I feel a little bit weird every time I do a takedown on YouTube, because it's like, well, why am I cool with this and not that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, hard to say.
Well, in just a moment, we're answering questions about BitTorrent, insuring cameras, and whether UV filters are necessary.
Hey Indie Filmmakers is brought to you by Wavem Studios and their full-length documentary, The Commodore Story, Changing the World 8 Bits at a Time.
This is the final week of their Kickstarter campaign, so it's your last chance to be one of around 1,000 backers of this film. And it's my last chance to get the rest of this ad read correct, because for the last 3 weeks, I got an important date wrong. Did you see this?
Damn
Nick?
it, Griffin.
Thanks to YouTube commenter Mike Vrobel, who pointed out that I've been saying... Here, let me just read this part. It's the story of the manufacturer of some of the first ever home computers that famously closed its doors forever in 1994. I had been saying 1984, because that's what the text said in front of me. But that's wrong.
Big mistake.
Yeah. So why don't you read the rest of it correctly?
All right. I'll show you how it's done. Okay, I was pulling up the Kickstarter just to see where they were at. I forgot I was supposed to read something, Griffin. If you want to see the film at the end of this year and get your name in the credits, check out their Kickstarter in our show notes at Hey.film. And they are at $47,000. Good for them. That is fantastic.
So our first email today comes from Andre, and he actually has a question about BitTorrent, and I wonder if you are familiar with this. I'm not familiar with this. He was wondering if we have used BitTorrent now. Do you know what that is?
I don't even know what it is.
So I went to their
website.
website.
How prepared I am for this show. I've read this document you've prepared very closely.
Well, BitTorrent now looks like it's a service for watching films. It's a subscription service, and it looks like it's a place I could put my film Sriracha. He also mentions another service called IndieFlix, and he's wondering if we know anything about it or what amount IndieFlix pays per minute, which we do not know. But I looked at it. IndieFlix looks interesting. It's people pay a subscription, and then the filmmakers collectively get 30% of these subscription fees based on the number of minutes people watch your film. So the idea that someone might only watch my film for 5 minutes, but I'd still get some fraction of the pool of money that's supposed to go to the filmmakers is kind of cool.
It is cool, but it does kind of bring up the question, is a shorter film less valuable than one that, is a little more rambling? It's almost it equates length with value, which in a way I'm a little uncomfortable with.
YouTube would say yes, length is valuable because they value watch time over views. Like the algorithm promotes things in search results that it thinks are going to lead to watch time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I can see that.
If you all are watching our 45-minute podcast videos, you are making YouTube very happy.
Right to the top. Oh, that's right. We're producing long-form content.
Yeah,
I love this idea. It's fantastic. Send the dollars this way.
Yeah, we should get our podcast on there. But actually, I was
talking.
glad that he brought up these two services because I forgot that there are more services I should consider putting Sriracha on. I'm not done.
You're so bad at this windowing. You're like, oh, well, not on
check 'em
Netflix.
out.
I guess that's it.
Our next email is from Tom, and he's wondering if we recommend getting insurance for our filmmaking equipment against theft and damage, and especially for taking this stuff to events in the field like weddings. Is there a risk there?
Definitely. I mean, absolutely.
Have you ever broken or lost or gotten anything stolen at a wedding? Or
I haven't. I've been, I guess I had a mic fall once, but I don't even think it broke. So no, I've been lucky. But what I've done is added a rider to my homeowner's insurance to cover my gear, and that's a pretty inexpensive way to cover it. And that's what I've done to protect my stuff.
And you got the rider because presumably your homeowner's insurance would or could cover some of this stuff, but it probably has a high deductible.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a cap. Some of these policies say if your house burns down, you can't say you had $100,000 worth of camera equipment. That's too much camera equipment.
Right, and I think the fact that you're using it for business or for profit might play into that as well. So I just got a specific, attachment that said it was all covered.
Yeah, they call it a rider, or sometimes they call it a personal articles policy. I know this because I have an associate in general insurance degree.
Ooh. Now, one thing that I don't have that I probably should have when I was shooting weddings is liability insurance.
Yeah.
Did you ever do anything with liability?
But I think once I had a wedding venue ask about that. Like, if you're going to come shoot here, do you have liability insurance?
And you said no, and they're like, okay.
No, I remember what happened. I actually, I went to my insurer at the time. I was insured by Country Insurance. for my home. And I said, can we come up with a policy that'll cover me for one day that has like $1 million liability? What's that called? It's not the premium, it's the the payout. I don't know, the benefit.
Coverage.
Yeah, the coverage. $1 million of coverage. But so yeah, they just put this plan into place, and it was really cheap because it was for one day.
Well, see, that sounds like something you should probably do every time you're going out in public with your gear. You know, you trip somebody with a power cord or something, you could be in trouble.
Now, some of this stuff is often covered in, if you have a homeowner's insurance policy or a renter's insurance policy, you should check it. You may have some coverage for legal liability, some coverage for your gear against theft, but it may not cover everything. So just check that out.
Good advice. Talk to a lawyer.
Yeah. Talk to an insurance company.
All right, we got another long email here, but you've bolded a part of it. Why don't you read that? Because I don't know where you're going with this.
So this email is from Brendan, and it's similar to a lot of emails I've been getting recently. I seem to be getting a lot of questions about 60 frames per second shooting.
Sure.
Mostly because most of us are not used to shooting that or editing 60 frames. So really, he's just wondering, when he's watching 60 FPS videos, what's happening in post? Are people like speeding this up, or like, is it coming into the timeline? I guess he just doesn't really know how we're conforming this footage and dealing with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends. When you're editing, it depends, you know, what your project settings are. Usually when I'm cutting things down, I use 24 or 23.9 as my frame rate for my actual project in my editing software. So when you drop a 60 frame per second video clip on that timeline, it's going to do a pull down, which means it's going to show some frames more than others. Am I saying that right? Or it's going to, in this case, it's going to drop certain frames.
Yeah, it's really just dropping a bunch of frames.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point. I think a lot of this confusion is about understanding. You kind of have to understand three things. You have to understand the frame rate that you shot in, the frame rate that you're editing in, and then what you want that footage to do. Do you want it to play back at normal speed, or slow it down, or speed it up? And I think most editing software, when you drop in footage, regardless if the frame rates match, will just say, I want to play this thing at 100% speed. I don't want to mess with the speed.
Normal speed, exactly. Yeah.
So when you drop 60 frame footage into a 24 frame timeline in Final Cut, it just drops out the other frames that aren't those middle 24. I mean, it's just going to pick 24 frames. Almost every other frame. But in Final Cut, you can right-click on the clip and say, or not right-click on it, you can go up to the retiming menu and select, what is it, actual speed? Conform speed or something?
I forget what it's worded, but something like that. I think it's conform, but...
Yeah, and it'll just stretch it out to 40% speed, because that's exactly playing all 60 frames, but playing it back at 24 frames a second will be 40% slow motion.
So you get beautiful slow-mo with that. You don't have to make up frames or have the computer generate frames or anything. It's just you have a perfect, exactly accurate frame at 40% speed.
So when you're watching a 60 frame per second video on YouTube, you're watching a video that was edited in 60. So they started with a 60 frame timeline, and hopefully they shot 60 frame footage. They didn't necessarily have to. You could
shoot 30 and then every frame gets shown twice exactly.
Right. Or you could shoot 30 and do optical flow and make additional frames, which is what a lot of TVs do. Real time. So there's a few different ways to do it.
If your TV's doing that, turn it off. That's like the soap opera effect on the TVs. It's just awful.
Right. Well, and that's what I noticed with my film, is that I liked how it looked on TVs because I gotten so used to it doing that really messy, ugly, making up frames in the middle. And I can see how bad these frames are. When you pause, you go like, oh, God, they're just a mess. Yeah. But when you play something that's actually shot in 60 back on a 60 frame TV, I think it looks pretty cool.
Sure.
So yeah, it's about understanding what you shot and how you want it to be exported.
Yep. When in doubt, shoot in 24, edit in 24. Agree?
Yeah, most of the time I think you want to shoot and edit in the same frame rate.
All right, we got a tweet from Sheldon. He said he picked up a 7 to 14 millimeter for time lapses, as per Griffin's recommendation. But how are you installing ND filters for time lapses?
So this is funny because the Panasonic 7 to 14 millimeter, I like it for time lapses. It's a really wide angle lens, but it has those like flower petal, like lens hood, like built into the lens. Like you can't take it off.
I didn't understand the question, but I figured you did, so I was letting you go with it. But now I get it.
And part of the problem is that the lens itself is very curved. Like the front glass is just a curved piece of glass. They didn't put like a flat piece of glass in front of it. So you can't put an ND filter on it. But I needed to because I wanted to shoot time lapses and I wanted that smooth motion. So I needed to like knock down the exposure a lot to get like 1 second long exposures. So what I did was I bought this thing called the D-Focus Systems Filter Thread Adapter. It's on B&H. I'll put the link in the video description, although I'm noticing now it's discontinued. It's not even a very good piece of technology. It looks like just a 3D printed like circle. It's just this little thing that like squeezes on top of the lens just to give it a flat edge that you can mount a filter on.
But it works, it sounds like.
Although it didn't even work that well because I put the thing on and I was getting crazy vignetting because it was just too far away from the lens. I mean, the lens is very wide angle, so it's going to find those corners and vignette. So I could only use it at like 10 millimeters, which defeated the purpose of using this 7 millimeter lens. I wanted that super wide angle. So what I ended up doing was I ended up cutting part of the flower petal lens hood off. Just like shaving down the side so it was much shorter so I could get that filter way closer to the curved glass, and that ended up getting rid of the vignetting.
Ta-da. So you got in there with a Dremel or something?
I think I took like a hacksaw.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to recommend that to people, but hey, do what you want to do. Anything to get what I call sunglasses on my lens, right?
It's funny, I didn't realize how well that question would lead into the next question, because the next question is about damaging your lenses. I'm pretty much wondering if we've ever done it. It's an email from John. His question is about UV filters. These things that they seem to always sell you in camera stores, like Best Buy or something, if you're buying a camera. You buy this UV filter. It's just a clear piece of glass that screws onto your lens. And everyone says you need them because it protects your lenses. So do you use them?
I don't. I don't have a problem with anyone who does, though. I mean, it does protect your lens. If you drop it, your $20 UV filter shatters and not the front element of your, $700 lens. So
is that how dropping works, though? Like,
well, if it's going to impact something, right? If you drop it on the concrete, I mean, whatever hits the concrete is likely to crack first, right?
But is the I guess it depends on if it's like, I don't know, is it going to like soften the blow, or is the UV filter just going to crack into the
anything that could scratch your front element?
Yeah, scratching definitely. Yeah.
But when you spend this kind of money on good expensive glass, putting a $20 much less nice piece of glass in front of it is not something I usually want to do. You're going to really introduce a lot more possibility for flares and things like that. So in general, I don't, and I just try and be careful, and so far so good. But
yeah. And I also wonder, I'm also someone who doesn't use screen protectors, because at this point I assume that most of this professional glass on an iPhone or on a nice lens is pretty good glass.
Yeah, Gorilla Glass, right?
Like, I don't know, if I took a key to my lens right now, would I do much damage? I don't know.
One way to find out, let's make a YouTube video. Just use one of those lenses Panasonic sent you.
Yeah.
I'm a no case guy on the iPhone. No case, no screen protector.
Oh, yeah. I have a feeling you are more careful with your lenses than I am.
Because you're using them every day, and you're just out there all the time. You don't have time to be careful.
Yeah, I've just gotten to this place where I'm just like, it's throwing them in my bag. Sometimes the rear cap's not on. I got to move quickly. I got to get the shot. I'm not too, I don't know. So I don't feel like I've been super nice to these lenses, and I don't think I've scratched them up. I think they seem to withstand it pretty well.
Nice.
So before we go, I do want to say that I will be in Bloomington Normal, Illinois next week for something called Com Week at Illinois State University. This is where Nick and I went to school.
Go Redbirds.
Yeah. Go you Redbirds on to victory. Fight for ISU. So if you are around, this may only be for students, but email me at Griffin@Hey.film if you want to come to my speaking event on April 19th, and I'll see if I can get you in.
Cool.
And then I'm going to come see you, Nick, the week after that. I'm going to be there for
Woohoo.
NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters show.
Boom. So we'll be together. We can
Yeah.
properly set the shots, and won't be all screwed up. Like,
Yeah, let's try to make them different and color correct, white balance differently.
Well, white balance, because you got the flex lights that do the separate white balance, so we can we can make it look like we're in two different rooms, even though we're sitting next to each other. Brilliant. Are you staying at my house, or are they getting you a hotel?
Maybe both.
As always. Okay. Very good.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Go Cubs.
So I think
be
next
exciting.
week's show, we will do it about saving money on filmmaking and getting your taxes all set up.
Yes, guys. You heard right. Taxes on the podcast.
Yeah.
What could be better?
We're going to talk about deductions, the things you can deduct as filmmakers.
Quarterly payments. What?
Oh, yeah, I got to do my quarterly payments. And then in 2 weeks, we'll do our episode from the NAB show.